With the latest in the Kaneshiro bribery case.
Our Lynn Kwana recaps what we've learned so far, including details about a delay in the trial after one of the defendants had to go to the hospital.
82-year-old Dennis Mitsunaga is back in court for day 21 of the trial, the Kaneshiro bribery trial, as it's called. The 82-year-old fell and hit his head at the Federal Detention Center ahead of court yesterday, and that's why court had to be delayed. He was taken to the hospital. He has a laceration, but what was revealed in court and court documents is that he's fallen several times at FDC. He is the only one of the 6 defendants in this trial who has been detained, meaning his bail has been revoked. He is back at FDC, and he is supposed to remain there through the duration of trial. That's after new allegations of witness tampering and obstruction came out last month. It's not the court's fault. There are just so many defendants and so many different issues that keep coming up that this trial is being delayed a little bit more each week. The government hoped to rest last week. Maybe they'll rest today or tomorrow. We're not sure.
So, Lynn, what have we learned so far in the trial? Anything groundbreaking?
We've learned quite a bit. There's a lot of campaign contributions details that have been coming out, allegations that Terry Otani, one of the defendants from Mitsunaga and Associates, Inc., the engineering firm that's very politically connected, allegations from her niece and her auntie or Terry's sister that basically, Terry Otani was practicing straw donations, using people's names and bank accounts to funnel donations to political candidates, because this is a way to skirt the donation limit rules. There's a lot of, this is a bribery trial. So the allegations by the government is that Keith Kaneshiro, Honolulu's longest serving prosecuting attorney, was using his power to prosecute a woman who was fired by the engineering firm, a former architect named Laurel Mao. She testified. She had a lot to say, and I think it did have weight with the jury. But among the defendants are employees from Mitsunaga and Associates, Inc., from that firm, as well as Keith Kaneshiro. There's a lot going on. There's 6 defendants. Each of them, they have their own legal team. So it's very crowded over there on the defense side as we complete day 21 today.
And one more question for you. Going back to Mitsunaga, you mentioned the alleged witness tampering and obstruction. What do we know exactly about that?
What we know is one of the witnesses, a former HPD officer, Rudy Olivato, took the stand, and he told the jury that ahead of his testimony in trial, he was asked to change some of his testimony. He went to the grand jury years ago, and in the grand jury, he admitted that he lied the first time to protect Dennis Mitsunaga. The government says he came back when he was told he was a target. He became a target for lying under oath. In the second grand jury, he says he told the truth. Well, it's those second grand jury transcripts that were given to him weeks ago ahead of his testimony before trial, underlined parts that were, I guess, harmful to the defense. And the government says that was an effort to get him to change his testimony so that it would be favorable for Dennis Mitsunaga and for the politically connected engineering firm. It's super complicated, but really it's new allegations of witness tampering and obstruction. And Dylan, there's a new grand jury about that, meaning more charges could be on the way. It just never ends.
Our chief investigative reporter, Lynn Kawano, keeping a very close eye on this ongoing trial. Lynn, thank you so much.